I spent 3 hours getting ready for my own ambush. The irony isn't lost on me now, curling my hair into loose waves, applying that overpriced lipstick Yusuf once said made me look like a 1940s film star. I'd chosen the black dress with the open back, the one that made me feel powerful in court and desirable at home. My reflection had whispered back reassurances. "You've got this, Sadie." He'll be speechless. He was speechless, all right, just not for the reasons I'd imagined. The restaurant had been my idea, Luciana's, where we'd had our first date 7 years ago. I'd arranged everything meticulously. The private back room with its warm amber lighting, the champagne already chilling, our closest friends waiting. The perfect surprise for our anniversary. "He's 2 minutes out," Rebecca texted, stationed as lookout in the parking lot. My heart fluttered as I smoothed invisible wrinkles from my dress. Around me, our friends whispered excitedly, glasses of wine already half empty. The candles on the table caught the facets of my wedding ring, throwing tiny rainbows against the wall. "Places, everyone," I whispered, and the room fell to hushed giggles. The door handle turned. I held my breath. And then, 2 silhouettes in the doorway instead of one. "Surprise!" everyone shouted, before the collective intake of breath that followed made the candles flicker. Yusuf stood frozen, his arm around his secretary's waist. Ava's hand was tucked into the back pocket of his jeans, the jeans I'd bought him last Christmas. Her red fingernails against the dark denim seared into my vision like a brand. Sadie. My name in his mouth sounded foreign suddenly. "What is this?" I couldn't speak. The room tilted slightly. "I think it's supposed to be your anniversary party," Ava said, her voice dripping with something worse than mockery. Pity. The silence expanded, becoming a living thing that swallowed the oxygen in the room. I watched Yusuf's face transition from shock to calculation to decision. He straightened his shoulders, kept his arm firmly around Ava. "Well," he said, looking directly at me, "this is awkward timing." Rebecca appeared at my side, her hand finding mine. "I was going to tell you tomorrow," Yusuf continued, as if explaining a minor scheduling conflict. "Ava and we've been seeing each other. I've filed for divorce." The words hit like separate blows. Seeing each other. Filed. Divorce. 3 months, Ava added helpfully, twisting a strand of her perfect hair. It just happened so naturally. 3 months. 90 days of lies. 90 mornings he'd kissed me goodbye while carrying her scent. "You filed already?" My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Hollow, distant. "It's better this way," Yusuf said, his lawyer voice emerging. "Clean break. My lawyer will contact you Monday." Someone gasped. I think it was Kennedy, my business partner, who knew exactly what this meant. Yusuf had prepared. He'd strategized. While I'd been planning an anniversary surprise, he'd been planning my disposal. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. His eyes flickered, the tell he had when lying in poker. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." 6 weeks, he admitted. My lawyer suggested... Which lawyer? The room was spinning, but this detail suddenly seemed crucial. Michaels. Thomas Michaels. The divorce attorney known for hiding assets and destroying the financially weaker spouse. The shark we'd joked about at dinner parties. "You're using Michaels against me." The betrayal within the betrayal landed like a physical blow. Yusuf at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Sadie, let's not do this here." "Where should we do it? At home? Our home that you're probably trying to take from me too?" Ava sighed theatrically. This is exactly why he needed to move on. The drama. I looked at her. Really looked at her. 29, according to her employment file. 9 years my junior. The woman who'd brought Yusuf coffee every morning while I was in court. Who'd scheduled our dinner reservations, who'd sent me flowers from him on my birthday. "How long were you planning this?" I asked her directly. She smiled, a small victorious curl of her lips. "Long enough to know he deserves better." The room blurred. I felt Rebecca's arm around my waist, steadying me. "Everyone out," Kennedy announced to the stunned guests. Party's over. People shuffled past, murmuring apologies and avoiding eye contact. Some shot daggers at Yusuf. Others just looked embarrassed to witness my humiliation. When the room emptied except for Rebecca and Kennedy flanking me like sentinels, Yusuf finally removed his arm from Ava. I'll get my things tomorrow while you're at work, he said. It's better this way. Better for whom? I finally asked. For everyone, he replied, and I saw the man I'd loved disappear completely behind the stranger's eyes. You'll thank me someday. They left together, her perfume lingering like a taunt. I stood motionless in the beautiful room I'd decorated, surrounded by cooling food and melting ice. The anniversary playlist I'd carefully curated still played softly in the background, our song coming on just as the door closed behind them. I'll kill him, Rebecca whispered. No, I said, surprising myself with the clarity cutting through my shock. That would be too quick. I picked up my untouched champagne and drained it in one swallow. Sadie, Kennedy's voice was cautious. He thinks he's won, I said, setting down the empty glass. He thinks I'll crumble. I walked to the door, my legs somehow carrying me forward when everything inside me wanted to collapse. He has no idea who he married. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, Yusuf's arm around Ava's waist, her red nails against his jeans, my husband. Dawn found me sitting at our kitchen island, surrounded by the wreckage of what I'd thought was my life. Wedding photos face down. A half-empty bottle of expensive scotch Yusuf had been saving for a special occasion. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed with Rebecca's 10th text since she'd dropped me home. Still awake? Coming over with breakfast? I didn't respond. Couldn't. The words wouldn't form. Instead, I dragged myself upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and stood in the doorway. The bed was still made from yesterday morning, when I'd smoothed the comforter and plumped the pillows, thinking I'd return to it with my husband. A husband who'd been planning to leave me for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I walked to his closet and yanked open the door. His suits hung in perfect order, navy, charcoal, black. The shirts organized by color, the ties arranged by pattern. Everything in its place, just like our marriage had seemed. My fingers trailed across the fabrics. How many of these had I helped him choose? How many times had I straightened his tie before important meetings? All while he was planning his exit strategy. I grabbed a handful of ties and pulled. They slithered from the rack like falling snakes. The doorbell rang, startling me from my destruction. Rebecca. I should have known she'd come anyway. I opened the door to find her holding a bakery bag and coffee tray, her eyes puffy from crying for me. You look like hell, she said, pushing past me into the house. Thanks. Have you slept? I shook my head. Eaten? Another head shake. Well, you're going to eat now. She marched into the kitchen, setting down her offerings. And then we're going to figure out how to destroy him. A laugh escaped me, harsh and unfamiliar. You sound like me in court. I've heard you enough times. She pushed a coffee into my hands. Drink. I obeyed, the hot liquid burning my throat, reminding me I was still alive, still here. The pain felt good, real. He's using Thomas Michaels, I said after a moment. Do you know what that means? Rebecca nodded grimly. Kennedy told me. He's going for your throat. Professionally and financially. I took another scalding sip. Michaels specializes in hiding assets and destroying reputations. He'll try to take the firm. Can he do that? He can try. I set down the coffee. Yusuf's name is on half the paperwork, even though he hasn't contributed in years. He rode my success while screwing his secretary. Rebecca reached across the counter and gripped my hand. What do you need? Time. Information. I pulled away, suddenly restless. I need to know what I'm up against. What does that mean? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked to the living room window, staring out at the neighborhood waking up. Normal people starting normal days, unaware that my world had imploded. Sadie. I need to know about her, I finally said. About Ava. The secretary. Rebecca followed me. What about her? Everything. How long she's been planning this. What she knows. What she wants. I turned to face my friend. This wasn't spontaneous, Rebecca. You saw them last night. They were comfortable, practiced. You think she targeted him? I think nothing in my life is what I thought it was. The realization hit me fresh, a wave of nausea rising. I need to know if I've been played from the beginning. Rebecca was quiet for a moment, watching me carefully. What are you thinking of doing? Nothing illegal. Not yet, anyway. Just research, background checks, the kind of thing we do for every case. Let me help. I shook my head. You have Arthur, the kids. I can't drag you into my mess. You're not dragging me anywhere. I'm walking in voluntarily. She crossed her arms. Besides, Arthur already offered to help. He's furious. The mention of Arthur, Rebecca's steady, kind husband, brought a fresh ache. They'd been our closest friends. Double dates, vacations together, holidays. How much of that had been real for Yusuf? My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. He's coming for your files today. Back up everything. K. Kennedy, warning me. I have to go to the office, I said, suddenly alert. Now. What? Why? I showed her the text. Yusuf's making his move. If he gets to the firm's files before I do, I'm finished. Rebecca grabbed her purse. I'll drive. As we rushed to the car, another text came through, this one from Yusuf. Coming by at noon to get my things. Please don't be there. Let's keep this civil. Civil. As if ambushing me at my own anniversary party had been civil. Change of plans, I told Rebecca, a cold clarity washing over me. Take me to the mall first. The mall? Sadie, your files. Kennedy will handle it. I need to buy a nanny cam. I fastened my seatbelt, my mind suddenly terrifyingly clear. If Yusuf wants to play dirty, he should remember who taught him every trick he knows. Rebecca's eyes widened, then narrowed with understanding. She started the car. The game is on, she said, pulling away from the curb. I nodded, the hollow feeling in my chest giving way to something harder, sharper. And this time, I'm writing the rules. The nanny cam looked like an ordinary phone charger. That was the point. I plugged it into the outlet behind Yusuf's bedside table, his side of the bed, and positioned it toward the closet. If he was coming for his things, I wanted to see exactly what he took. Are you sure this is legal? Rebecca asked, hovering in the doorway. In my own home? Absolutely. I adjusted the angle slightly. Besides, I'm not recording audio, just video. And what exactly are you hoping to catch? I straightened up, meeting her eyes. Evidence. The word hung between us, heavy with implication. Rebecca didn't ask for clarification, and I didn't offer it. Some things are better left unsaid between friends, plausible deniability and all that. My phone buzzed. Kennedy again. Office secured. Files backed up. Where are you? I texted back. Home. Setting up surveillance. Meet at your place at 2. Her response was immediate. Bring wine. I almost smiled. Almost. We should go, I told Rebecca. I don't want to be here when he arrives. As we headed for the door, I paused in the hallway, my hand trailing along the wall where our wedding photos used to hang. I'd taken them down at dawn, unable to look at his smiling face anymore. The empty hooks remained like scars on the wall. You okay? Rebecca asked softly. No, I admitted. But I will be. We left through the back door. I couldn't bear to see Yusuf pull into the driveway, couldn't trust myself not to confront him. Not yet. Not until I had a plan. Kennedy's condo was a minimalist's dream. All clean lines and empty spaces. No photos, no mementos, nothing personal on display. It suited her. Kennedy kept her private life private, even from friends. Especially from friends. You look like shit, she greeted me, holding open the door. So I've been told. She took the wine from my hands and led us to her kitchen. 3 laptops were open on the counter, screens filled with documents and spreadsheets. You've been busy, I observed. I've been covering our arses. She poured 3 generous glasses of wine. Yusuf showed up at the office with Michaels an hour after I got your text. They demanded access to all client files. My stomach dropped. And? And I told them to get a court order. Kennedy's smile was razor-sharp. Then I reminded Michaels that half those clients are mine, not yours or Yusuf's, and if he wanted a legal battle over client privilege, I'd be happy to oblige. Relief washed over me. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. She slid a laptop toward me. This is bad, Sadie. Really bad. I looked at the screen. Financial records. Our joint accounts. Nearly empty. He cleaned you out, Rebecca whispered, looking over my shoulder. Not everything, I said, scrolling through the transactions. Just the joint accounts. He can't touch my personal accounts without a court order. Which Michaels will get, Kennedy pointed out, and soon. I took a long drink of wine, letting the information settle. How much time do we have? A week. Maybe less. Kennedy pulled up another screen. I've been doing some digging on your husband's new girlfriend. My chest tightened at the word girlfriend, such an innocent term for the woman who'd helped destroy my marriage. What did you find? Not much, which is interesting in itself. Kennedy tapped the screen. Ava Rice, 29, started at your firm 2 years ago. Before that, nothing. No social media, no previous employment records I can access, no credit history before 2018. That's not possible, Rebecca interjected. Everyone has a history. Everyone has a history, Kennedy agreed, but not everyone wants it found. I leaned closer to the screen, studying the employment application Ava had submitted to our firm. Standard information, name, address, previous employment at a law firm in Chicago I'd never heard of. Have you verified this? I asked, pointing to the Chicago firm. First thing I checked. The firm exists, but they have no record of an Ava Rice ever working there. The implications hit me like a physical blow. She lied on her application. Which means Yusuf hired someone with falsified credentials, Kennedy added. That could be useful. My mind raced. If Ava had lied about her work history, what else had she lied about? And why had Yusuf hired her without proper vetting? Unless... I need to see when she was hired, I said suddenly. The exact date. Kennedy pulled up the HR files. October 14th, 2021. I closed my eyes, the pieces clicking into place. That was the week I was in Boston for the Mercer trial. Yusuf handled all the hiring that month. You think he knew? Rebecca asked. About her fake credentials. I think it's worth finding out. I opened my eyes, a new determination settling over me. I need to talk to Isaiah. Your former client? Kennedy frowned. The one with the hacking charges. The very same. I pulled out my phone. He owes me a favor. Before I could dial, my phone lit up with a notification from the Nanny Cam app. Motion detected. We all froze, staring at my phone. I tapped the notification, and the video feed appeared. Yusuf was in our bedroom, but he wasn't alone. Ava was with him, sitting on our bed, my bed, watching as he packed. Turn up the volume, Rebecca whispered, though there was no audio to hear. We watched in silence as Yusuf methodically emptied his closet, suits, shirts, shoes, all into expensive luggage I'd never seen before. Then he moved to the dresser, pulling out the bottom drawer, my drawer, and removing a small box. My grandmother's jewellery. That bastard, I breathed. Ava said something, laughing, and Yusuf handed her the box. She opened it, held up my grandmother's sapphire necklace, and fastened it around her neck. My vision blurred with tears of rage. I'm going home, I said, standing abruptly. Now. Kennedy grabbed my arm. No, you're not. That's exactly what they want. You, emotional and reactive. Give me your phone. Kennedy. This is evidence, Sadie. Her grip tightened. Let them hang themselves. I sank back into my chair, trembling with fury and something else, a cold, clear purpose taking shape. You're right, I said finally. We need more than this. I looked at my friends, these women who dropped everything to help me, and made a decision. I'm not just going to survive this, I told them. I'm going to make them regret the day they ever thought they could take what's mine. Isaiah agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, the kind with terrible coffee but excellent privacy. The kind of place where people mind their business because they're conducting business they don't want minded. You look different, he said when I slid into the booth across from him. I hadn't seen Isaiah since his case concluded 6 months ago. I'd kept him out of prison for hacking into his ex-employer's system, ironically by proving the company had been hacking their own customers. Different how? I asked, though I knew. My eyes were harder, my posture tighter. Betrayal changes you physically, not just emotionally. Like you've joined the club. He pushed a coffee toward me. The someone screwed me over club. Membership's pretty exclusive. I wrapped my hands around the mug, absorbing its warmth. I need your help, Isaiah. I figured this wasn't a social call. He leaned back, studying me. What kind of help are we talking about? The legal kind or the other kind? The other kind. He nodded slowly. The kind that got me in trouble. The kind that got you out of trouble, I corrected. I need information on someone who doesn't want to be found. I slid my phone across the table, showing him Ava's employment application. Isaiah glanced at it, then at me, his expression unreadable. Your husband's girlfriend. My jaw tightened. News travelled fast. Yes. And you want me to… what? Hack her email? Track her phone? Because I should remind you as my lawyer that those things are… I want you to find out who she really is, I interrupted. Legal methods only. I'm not asking you to break any laws. Isaiah raised an eyebrow. Then why come to me? You have investigators on retainer. Because those investigators work for my firm, a firm my husband is currently trying to take from me. I leaned forward. I need someone outside the system, someone who knows how to find what doesn't want to be found. He was quiet for a long moment, turning my phone in his hands. This is personal for you. Yes. Revenge is a bad reason to do anything, Sadie. It's not about revenge. The words came out sharper than I intended. It's about protection. I need to know what I'm dealing with. Isaiah studied me, his eyes skeptical. You sure about that? I wasn't, actually. The line between protection and revenge had blurred the moment I saw Ava wearing my grandmother's necklace, but Isaiah didn't need to know that. I'm sure, I lied. He sighed, sliding my phone back. I'll see what I can find. But Sadie, be careful. Digging into people's pasts, sometimes you find things you wish you hadn't. Rebecca was waiting at my house when I returned. She sat on the front steps, a bottle of wine beside her. You could have gone inside, I said, climbing the steps. You have a key. I wasn't sure if… She hesitated. If they might still be here. The thought of Yusuf and Ava in my home made my stomach clench. They're gone. The nanny cam hasn't picked up movement in hours. I unlocked the door, bracing myself for what I might find. The house felt different, emptier, though nothing visible had changed in the living room. It was the energy that had shifted, as if the walls themselves knew their owner had abandoned them. I checked upstairs while you were meeting Isaiah, Rebecca said, following me inside. Yusuf took most of his clothes, his electronics, and some books. And my grandmother's jewellery. The memory of Ava trying on the necklace burned fresh. I'm sorry, Sadie. I shrugged, aiming for nonchalance and missing by miles. It's just stuff. It's not just stuff. Rebecca set the wine on the coffee table. It's your history, your memories. Well, those are gone too. I sank onto the couch. Did you check his office? Cleaned out. Files, computer, everything. I nodded, unsurprised. Yusuf was nothing if not thorough. What about the safe? Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. What safe? I stood, moving to the painting in the hallway, a mediocre landscape Yusuf had insisted on hanging. Behind it was a wall safe I'd installed when we first bought the house. He doesn't know about this one, I said, entering the combination. It's where I keep the important things. The safe swung open, revealing several folders, a USB drive, and a small velvet pouch. I removed the pouch first, opening it to reveal my mother's wedding ring. At least he didn't get everything, I murmured. I took out the USB drive next, turning it over in my hand. This has copies of all our financial records for the past 5 years, every account, every transaction. Smart, Rebecca said. Paranoid, I corrected. My parents lost everything when my father got sick. I swore I'd never be financially vulnerable. I plugged the drive into my laptop, scrolling through the files. Bank statements, investment accounts, tax returns, all meticulously organized by year and type. "What are you looking for?" Rebecca asked, peering over my shoulder. "Patterns," I said, opening a spreadsheet from last year. "Specifically, when things started changing. I found it in the April statements. A cash withdrawal of $5,000 from our joint account. Nothing unusual there. We both made cash withdrawals occasionally. But the next month showed another $5,000, and then again in June. By October, the withdrawals had increased to $10,000 monthly. He's been planning this for over a year, I whispered, the realization like ice in my veins. Taking cash so it wouldn't be traceable. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder. "Sadie." My phone rang, cutting her off. "Isaiah." "That was fast," I answered. "We need to meet," he said, his voice tight. "Now." "Did you find something?" "Not over the phone, Sadie." A pause. "And come alone." He hung up before I could respond. "What is it?" Rebecca asked, noting my expression. I stared at the phone, a strange mixture of dread and anticipation coursing through me. Isaiah found something about Ava, something he won't discuss on the phone. That can't be good. "No," I agreed, grabbing my keys, "but it might be useful." As I headed for the door, Rebecca called after me. "Sadie, whatever you're planning, remember who you are." I turned back, meeting her worried gaze. "That's exactly the problem, Rebecca," I said quietly. "I'm not sure I know anymore." Isaiah wasn't at the coffee shop this time. He'd texted an address, a park bench overlooking the river. Public enough to be safe, private enough to talk. The kind of place people choose when they're about to share something dangerous. He was already there when I arrived, hunched forward, elbows on knees. He didn't look up as I approached. "Isaiah?" "Sit down, Sadie." His voice was flat, controlled. I sat beside him, the chill of the metal bench seeping through my clothes. "What did you find?" He handed me a manila folder. Ava Rice doesn't exist, at least not until 4 years ago. I opened the folder. Inside was a driver's license with Ava's photo, but a different name. Melissa Winters. "She changed her identity," I said, studying the license. "Why?" "Keep reading." The next document was a newspaper clipping from a small town in Oregon. The headline made my breath catch. "Local woman charged in embezzlement scheme." The article detailed how Melissa Winters, office manager at a law firm, had been arrested for stealing nearly $200,000 from client trust accounts. There was a mugshot, definitely Ava, though with darker hair and a harder expression. "She's done this before," I whispered. Isaiah nodded grimly. 3 times that I could find, different names, different states, but same pattern. She gets hired at a law firm, works her way into a position of trust, then disappears with as much money as she can take. My mind raced. And Yusuf? Is he involved? That's where it gets interesting. Isaiah took the folder back, flipping to another document. I found this in archived emails from her previous identity. It was a printed email exchange between Melissa Winters and someone using an anonymous email address. The messages discussed target selection, methodology, and split percentages. She works with a partner, I realized, someone who helps her identify vulnerable firms and gain access. Someone like a lawyer who knows the system from the inside, Isaiah confirmed. "I can't prove it's Yusuf. The emails are too careful, no names, no specific locations. But the timing. What about the timing? The last email in this exchange was sent 3 weeks before Ava Rice applied to your firm. And look at the language." He pointed to a line in the email. "Target secured. Initiation phase begins next month." Cold clarity washed over me. They targeted us. Me. It looks that way. I stood abruptly, needing to move, to breathe. The implications crashed through me like waves. Yusuf hadn't just cheated. He'd conspired, planned, used me. "Sadie?" Isaiah's voice seemed distant. "There's more." I turned back to him. "More?" "They're planning something now. Something big." He handed me one final document, a bank statement for an account I didn't recognize. "This is a shell company registered last month. 2 days after your husband filed for divorce, $500,000 was transferred into it. From where? That's the problem, I can't trace it. Isaiah stood, joining me. But based on her pattern, I'd guess it's client money. Your clients. The ground seemed to shift beneath me. If Yusuf and Ava had stolen from client trust accounts, it wouldn't just be my reputation at stake. I could lose my license, face criminal charges. I need to go, I said suddenly. I need to check the accounts. Isaiah caught my arm. Sadie, wait. If they've already moved the money, going in guns blazing could tip them off. You need to be strategic. Strategic? I laughed bitterly. While they're stealing from my clients? While they're setting me up to take the fall? Yes. His grip tightened. Because if you're right, if they're stealing and planning to frame you, then rushing in is exactly what they want. You need proof before you make accusations. I pulled away, anger and fear churning inside me. And how do I get that proof without alerting them? You have me. He said it simply, as if offering to help move furniture, not investigate financial fraud. Why would you risk this if you're caught hacking financial records? Because you believed me when no one else did. He shrugged, uncomfortable with the sentiment. And because I hate seeing people get away with this shit. I studied him, this man I'd defended but never really known. This could get complicated, Isaiah. Life's complicated. A small smile touched his lips. Besides, I'm good at what I do. My phone buzzed with a text from Kennedy. Emergency at the office. Come now. I have to go, I told Isaiah, showing him the message. The office. I'll keep digging, he promised. Be careful, Sadie. These people play for keeps. I could hear the shouting from the elevator. Kennedy's voice, sharp and angry, and another voice. Male, familiar. Yusuf. I pushed through the glass doors of our firm to find them squared off in the reception area, Kennedy blocking the hallway to the offices, Yusuf red-faced and gesturing. You have no right to lock me out, he was saying. My name is on the lease. Your name is on a lot of things that don't belong to you, Kennedy shot back. They both turned as I entered. Kennedy's face showed relief. Yusuf's flickered with something else. Calculation, then a smooth transition to wounded dignity. Sadie, he said, softening his voice. Tell your attack dog to back down. I just need to get some files from my office. I looked at my husband, this stranger wearing a familiar face, and felt something shift inside me. The shock and pain were still there, but beneath them something harder had formed. Something cold and clear and focused. Your office, I repeated. You mean the office in the firm you abandoned? The firm you're trying to destroy? He blinked, surprised by my tone. I don't know what Kennedy's been telling you, but... Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop, Yusuf. I know about Ava. Or should I call her Melissa? His face went perfectly still, just for a moment, but long enough. He knew. I don't know what you're talking about, he said carefully. I think you do. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. And I think you should know that if anything happens to this firm, or its clients, I will bury you both. Not just professionally, completely. Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. Good. You're making a mistake, Sadie, he said quietly. This doesn't have to be ugly. You made it ugly the moment you decided to betray me. I nodded toward the door. Now get out of my firm. He hesitated, then gathered his dignity around him like a cloak. My lawyer will be in touch. I'm counting on it. After he left, Kennedy turned to me, eyes wide. What the hell was that? And who is Melissa? I took a deep breath, the adrenaline still coursing through me. We need to check the trust accounts, all of them, right now. Sadie, what's going on? I met her gaze steadily. I think Yusuf and Ava are planning to steal from our clients and frame me for it, and I think we might already be too late to stop them. $3 million. The number glowed on the computer screen like an accusation. $3 million missing from our client trust accounts, transferred through a maze of shell companies over the past month. How did we not catch this? Kennedy whispered, her face pale in the glow of the monitor. We'd been in the office for 6 hours, combing through every account, every transaction. The conference room looked like a war zone. Empty coffee cups, scattered papers, the desperation of people fighting a battle they were already losing. Because it was done with authorized credentials, I said, rubbing my eyes. My credentials. That was the most elegant part of their plan. All the transfers had been executed using my login information, creating a perfect digital trail leading directly to me. "We need to call the police," Kennedy said. "And tell them what? That my husband stole client money using my account?" I laughed bitterly. "They'll arrest me, not him. Then the Bar Association, the Ethics Committee. Same problem." I stood, needing to move, to think. "We need proof it wasn't me. Proof that Yusuf and Ava did this." Kennedy watched me pace, her expression troubled. And if we can't get that proof? The question hung in the air between us. We both knew what it meant. Without proof, I'd lose everything, my license, my freedom, my future. "Then I'll take the fall," I said finally. "It's my firm, my responsibility." "That's bullshit, Sadie." Kennedy slammed her hand on the table. "I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself for his crimes." My phone buzzed with a text from Isaiah. "Found something. Your office. 20 minutes. "Isaiah's coming," I told Kennedy. "He might have something." She frowned. "You trust him with this? We barely know him." "I know enough." I gathered the scattered financial records into a folder, and right now we need all the help we can get. Isaiah arrived carrying a laptop and a grim expression. He sat up at the conference table without a word, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Tell me you have good news," I said. "Define good." He turned the screen toward us. "I tracked the money. Most of it's been moved offshore, but about $500,000 is still sitting in an account under the name Phoenix Consulting. Can we get it back? Not without a court order." He pulled up another window. "But that's not the interesting part. Look who owns Phoenix Consulting." The document showed the company registration. The owner's name made my blood run cold. Sadie Hansen. "They put it in my name," I whispered. "It gets worse." Isaiah clicked through to another screen. "The account was set up using your social security number, your date of birth. They have everything, Sadie." Kennedy swore under her breath. "Identity theft on top of embezzlement. They're thorough." "They've done this before," I reminded her. "They know how to cover their tracks." Isaiah nodded. "And they're planning to leave town. I found flight reservations to the Cayman Islands for tomorrow night. 2 passengers." "We need to stop them," Kennedy said. "How?" I demanded. "We have no proof they did this. Everything points to me." Isaiah cleared his throat. "Actually, that might not be entirely true." We both turned to him. "I've been monitoring Ava's email," he admitted. "Most of it's encrypted, but she slipped up. She sent a message to Yusuf from her personal account this morning." He pulled up the email. It was brief, just a few lines. "Everything's in place. S's credentials worked perfectly. Remaining transfers complete by noon tomorrow. Meet at the usual place at 7 to finalize exit strategy." "This is it," Kennedy breathed. "This proves they did it." "It proves they're planning something," I corrected. "But it's not enough. We need more." "What more do you need?" Kennedy demanded. "They stole $3 million using your identity. And a good lawyer, like Thomas Michaels, would argue this email is too vague to prove anything." I shook my head. "We need them to incriminate themselves explicitly. We need a confession." Isaiah leaned back, studying me. "You're thinking about the usual place, setting a trap." "Yes." The plan was forming in my mind, dangerous but clear. "If I can get them to talk about what they've done, record it somehow." "That's insane," Kennedy interrupted, "and probably illegal. Recordings made without consent are inadmissible in court," I finished for her. "But they might be enough to get the police to investigate, to freeze the accounts before the money disappears completely." "Or they might get you killed," Kennedy countered. "These people have already shown they'll do anything for money." I looked at the email again, at the casual way they discussed destroying my life. 3 years of marriage, and Yusuf could betray me without hesitation. The pain of that knowledge had hardened into something else now, a cold, clear purpose. I need to know where they're meeting, I told Isaiah. Can you find out? He hesitated. Probably. But Kennedy's right, Sadie. This is dangerous. More dangerous than prison? I asked quietly. More dangerous than losing everything I've worked for? Neither of them answered. My phone rang. Rebecca. I stepped away to answer. Sadie? Her voice was tight with worry. Arthur just called. Yusuf reached out to him. What? Why? He wants to meet. Says he has a proposition for Arthur. She paused. Arthur thinks it's about buying your share of the firm. He's stalling, but... A chill ran through me. When does he want to meet? Tonight, 7 o'clock at the Overlook. The Overlook. An upscale restaurant on the river where Yusuf and I had celebrated our anniversaries, where he'd proposed. The usual place, I whispered. What? Nothing. My mind was racing. Tell Arthur to agree to the meeting, but he needs to be late. Very late. Sadie, what are you planning? I looked back at Kennedy and Isaiah, still arguing about risks and evidence. I'm going to get my confession, I said. And I'm going to make Yusuf and Ava regret the day they ever thought they could take what's mine. As I hung up, I felt something settle inside me. A terrible, perfect clarity. There would be no turning back after tonight. I was counting on it. The Overlook hadn't changed. Same soft lighting, same river view, same quiet hum of expensive conversation. I'd loved this place once. Now it felt like returning to the scene of a crime. I chose a table in the corner angled to see the entrance but partially hidden by a decorative pillar. The recording device Isaiah had given me pressed against my ribs, tucked into the inner pocket of my blazer. One button to activate, he'd explained. One chance to get it right. Can I get you something to drink while you wait? The server asked. Just water, thank you. My mouth was already dry enough. Kennedy had wanted to come, to sit at a nearby table as backup. I'd refused. This needed to be clean. Just me, Yusuf, and Ava. Just the truth, finally. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Arthur's ready. He'll call Yusuf at 7:15 to say he's running late. Perfect. That would give me 15 minutes alone with them. At 6:55, they arrived. Yusuf entered first, scanning the restaurant with the confident ease of someone who belongs everywhere. Ava followed, her hand on his arm, wearing a sleek black dress and, my breath caught, my grandmother's sapphire necklace. They were seated at a table by the window, the one Yusuf always requested, the one where he'd proposed. I watched them order drinks, their heads bent close together, sharing some private joke. My husband and his accomplice, celebrating their victory before it was complete. At 7:05, I stood. My legs felt strangely steady as I crossed the restaurant. Neither of them noticed me until I was at their table. Mind if I join you? I asked. Yusuf's head snapped up, shock flashing across his face before he controlled it. Sadie, what are you doing here? Waiting for Arthur, same as you. I pulled out a chair and sat, though I suspect we have different agendas for that meeting. Ava's hand moved to her throat, fingers touching the sapphire necklace. Not nervous, protective. This is a private dinner. Is it? I smiled thinly. I thought it was business. Phoenix Consulting business, perhaps? The flash of alarm in Yusuf's eyes was worth every second of pain he'd caused me. I don't know what you're talking about, he said carefully. No, I leaned forward, keeping my voice low. $3 million from client trust accounts, transferred using my credentials, a company registered in my name, flight reservations to the Cayman Islands. Should I continue? Ava's eyes darted to Yusuf, seeking direction. He maintained his composure, but I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Those are serious accusations, he said finally, especially coming from someone who's clearly emotionally unstable after a divorce. We both know I'm not unstable, Yusuf, just inconvenient. I reached for his water glass, took a sip. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Do? He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. There's nothing to do. You have no proof of anything. Don't I? I set down the glass. Melissa. Ava flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's right, I continued. I know who you are. Oregon 2018, Denver 2020. And now here. Same scam, different names. You're delusional, Ava hissed, but her fingers were white around her clutch. Am I? I turned back to Yusuf. Did you know about her past when you hired her? Or did you find out later when you decided to become partners in more ways than one? Yusuf's jaw tightened. Sadie, you're making a scene. No, I'm making a point. I leaned closer. I know what you've done. I know you're planning to disappear with my client's money, and I know you think you've covered your tracks. If you knew anything, Yusuf said quietly, you'd have gone to the police. Maybe I have. His eyes narrowed. You haven't, because there's nothing to find that doesn't lead back to you. There it was. Not quite a confession, but close. So that was the plan, I asked. Frame me for the embezzlement. Buy my share of the firm from Arthur for pennies while I'm fighting criminal charges, then disappear with the money. There is no plan, Yusuf insisted, but his eyes flickered to Ava again. It's a good plan, I admitted. Elegant, using my login, my identity, making the transfers look like they came from me. I paused. There's just one problem. And what's that? Ava asked, unable to help herself. You got greedy. I nodded toward the necklace. Taking my grandmother's jewelry? That was personal. That made it about hurting me, not just about the money. I don't know what— Stop lying, I cut her off. It's boring and we don't have much time. Arthur will be calling soon to say he's running late. Yusuf went very still. How do you know that? Because I told him to, I smiled. Did you really think he'd sell me out? Arthur's been my friend for 15 years. He was at our wedding, Yusuf. He held your bachelor party. Something shifted in Yusuf's expression, the first flicker of uncertainty. What do you want? He asked finally. A confession. I kept my voice steady. Admit what you've done. Return the money. Walk away. Ava laughed high and brittle. Or what? You have nothing. I have this. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email Isaiah had found. And I have the offshore account numbers, the flight reservations, the company registration with my forged signature. Circumstantial, Yusuf dismissed, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. Maybe. I leaned back. But it's enough to start an investigation, enough to freeze the accounts until the truth comes out, enough to keep you from disappearing with my client's money. Yusuf's phone rang. Arthur, right on schedule. He silenced it without looking away from me. You're bluffing, he said quietly. Am I? I stood, buttoning my blazer. The recording device pressed against my ribs, still running. I guess we'll find out tomorrow when the FBI shows up at your door. I turned to leave, counting silently. 1, 2, 3. Wait. I paused, not turning around. What if we could make a deal? Yusuf asked, his voice lower now. The money goes back. No one has to know. I turned slowly, meeting his eyes. Say it. Say what? Say what you did. I want to hear you admit it. Ava started to speak, but Yusuf silenced her with a look. Fine, he said. We took the money. We used your login, your identity. We were going to disappear and let you take the fall. His voice hardened. Happy now? I felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication. Just a hollow space where love had been. The necklace, I said, looking at Ava. Take it off. Her hand went to her throat. No. Take it off, I repeated. Or I walk out that door and call the FBI right now. With trembling fingers, she unclasped the necklace, dropping it on the table between us. I picked it up, the sapphire cool against my palm. My grandmother's voice seemed to whisper from it. You are stronger than you know. The money will be returned by noon tomorrow, I said, slipping the necklace into my pocket. All of it, or the recording of this conversation goes to the police. Yusuf's eyes widened. What recording? I smiled, my finger finding the button on the device. This one. The soft click was barely audible, but in the silence between us, it sounded like a thunderclap. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I sat in my living room, the recording device on the coffee table in front of me, replaying Yusuf's confession until his voice became just noise, stripped of its power to hurt me. By dawn, I'd made my decision. Kennedy arrived first, then Rebecca, then Isaiah. They found me making coffee in the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's clothes, my eyes gritty with exhaustion, but my mind clear. Did they return the money? Kennedy asked, without preamble. I handed her a printout of the bank transfers. Every penny. Completed an hour ago. Jesus. She scanned the document. They actually did it. They had no choice. I poured coffee into mugs, my movements mechanical. The recording gave them no way out. So it's over, Rebecca said, relief evident in her voice. You won. I didn't answer immediately, passing out the coffee instead. The morning light streamed through the kitchen windows, catching dust motes in its beam. Outside, a neighbor walked her dog. Normal life continuing as if nothing had changed. Sadie? Isaiah prompted. What are you thinking? I took a breath. I'm thinking about what winning really means. They exchanged glances, sensing something in my tone. The money's back, Kennedy said slowly. You have proof they tried to frame you. What more do you want? Justice. I met her eyes. Real justice, not just for me. Isaiah leaned forward. You're going to the police. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. This morning, with the recording, the financial records, everything. But you got what you wanted, Rebecca protested. Why risk it? Because it's not just about me. I gripped my mug tighter. Yusuf and Ava have done this before. They'll do it again if they get away with it. To someone else's firm, someone else's clients. You don't owe those hypothetical people anything, Kennedy argued. And taking this to the police means everything becomes public. The firm's reputation will survive, I finished for her. Because we did nothing wrong. Because we caught the fraud and returned the money before any clients were harmed. Kennedy shook her head. It's not that simple. The publicity alone could... It is that simple, I interrupted. We're lawyers, Kennedy. We believe in the law, or we should. What message does it send if I use that recording just to save myself and then let them walk away? The room fell silent. I could see them wrestling with it. The practical versus the principled. Safety versus justice. There's something else, I added quietly. Something I haven't told you. I pulled out my phone, opened an email Isaiah had forwarded me late last night. Before Ava, before Melissa, there was another identity, another firm. I handed the phone to Kennedy. The lawyer who caught them that time didn't go public, took the money back and let them leave town. Kennedy read the email, her expression darkening. They stole from client accounts meant for a children's cancer charity. Yes, I took the phone back, and 2 years later they did it again in Denver, and now here. It doesn't stop unless someone stops them. Rebecca touched my arm. Are you sure about this? Once you go to the police, there's no turning back. I'm sure. For the first time in days, I felt certain. I need to do this. Not for revenge, for justice. Then we're with you, Isaiah said simply. Kennedy sighed but nodded her agreement. All the way. Thank you. I looked at each of them, these people who'd stood by me through the worst days of my life. But there's one more thing I need to do first. Alone. The divorce papers waited on my kitchen table. Yusuf's lawyer had delivered them the day after the restaurant confrontation. Standard boilerplate, nothing vindictive. A clean break, just as he'd promised that first night. I'd read them carefully, looking for traps, for hidden clauses. There were none, just the dissolution of 7 years of marriage, reduced to legal terminology and signature lines. My pen hovered over the paper. One signature and it would be done. Legally, at least. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Arthur on my porch, looking uncertain. Rebecca said you might need a friend, he explained. I stepped back to let him in. I'm signing the papers. He nodded, following me to the kitchen. Are you okay? No. I picked up the pen again. But I will be. Arthur watched as I signed each flagged page, his presence steady and undemanding. When I reached the final signature line, I paused. I loved him. I said, the words catching in my throat. Even after everything, some part of me still... I know. Arthur's voice was gentle. That's what makes you different from him. I signed my name one last time, then set down the pen. It's done. Not quite. Arthur reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. Rebecca asked me to give you this. After. Inside was a single key and an address I didn't recognize. What is this? A cabin, he explained. On the lake. Rebecca's family owns it. She thought you might want somewhere quiet to go after the police. The simple kindness of it, this offering of sanctuary, broke something loose inside me. Not grief, exactly. Something lighter. Tell her thank you, I said, closing my fingers around the key. But I think I need to stay, to see this through. Arthur nodded, understanding. And after? After? I looked around the kitchen, the home I'd built, the life I'd planned. None of it what I'd expected, but all of it mine. After I rebuild, on my terms this time. I gathered the signed papers, slid them into their envelope. One chapter closing, another beginning. You know what the strangest part is? I said, sealing the envelope. I thought losing him would destroy me. I thought he was essential, like oxygen. And now? I smiled. A real smile, the first in what felt like forever. Now I know better. He wasn't oxygen. He was just a man who couldn't see what he had. I placed the divorce papers on the counter, ready to be delivered, ready to be finished. And what I had, I said, was always more than enough.